Hi guys, what's up? Good morning. This is James from OJ Motion and Design, and welcome to another tutorial. And today we'll be looking at exactly how we can achieve photorealism in rendering using Arnold Render. I'm using Cinema 4D 2023 and Arnold 4.5. So here we are. I'd already set up my scene. My watch here. Get out of the camera. There you go. It has all the materials applied onto it. Sorry about that. That's my phone. As you can see, there we are. We have our watch. Now, one may be asking themselves, why did I? First of all, if you look at the watch, I removed the face up here. It's because when you're doing renders like this, placing a glass on top of this will just make your scene look like hell. I mean, there are other ways of getting around it. Like for instance, if you're in Corona, you go to your glass material. There's a place for checking a box called thin no refraction, and I think Arnold has the same. It's just that I do not know where it is. If somebody knows, please leave that in the description so I know where that is. But Arnold has it as well. So you want to avoid glass on top of such kind of way. Whenever you can, please do. Similar to when you're doing architectural visualizations or shots, just don't put glass on your windows. I thought that was just a tip you should know. And then I separated this arm from the main board because this is one whole big thing. The reason why I did that is so that I could animate the arm like so. But our render is not going to include an animation. Okay, so just don't be excited yet. Even though whatever we're going to do can be applied onto your animation, do as you wish. So, first things first, I already have a camera here. I named it Arnold camera. But it won't be an Arnold camera unless you have a tag. Let me just open. In this whole Arnold thing or Arnold menu, this whole thing, one of the most important things that you're going to be using a lot is this IPR window, because it gives you direct feedback like almost immediately. So if I launch it like right now, IPR window, Arnold will start immediately processing the scene. It doesn't waste time. And I think Arnold IPR is one of the fastest. If I compare it to Redshift and Octane, I think it just goes on immediately. But it's pitch black. We cannot see anything. Why? Because we do not have any lights. So what I'll do, let me just move this over here and create an area light. Depending on whichever render I use, I think area light is one of my best lighting options. So in Arnold it's called quad light. There you go. Now our scene comes to life. It's pretty ugly because the light is not resting in the right position. You just get out of the camera so that we can see the light. And I'm trying to see this frames. There we go. This thing is pretty humongous. Let's just reduce it a little bit. Like I told you, the reason why I like using Arnold and Octane, I have Redshift, Corona, and Arnold and Octane, but I love using Octane and Arnold because they are path tracing renderers. What that means is they mimic exactly what the real world will look like. If you scale this light down, the intensity becomes even smaller. Scale it up and you have a really bright light. So that's why I like them. They are called path tracers, renderers, which are like, you don't have to tweak so much to get them to be working for you. So instead of moving this thing around and angling it to wherever I want, I already have a target for my camera, which is sitting at exactly where the watch arms, should I call the arms, rotating from. So I can use the same, maybe just copy it. Control drag will copy it. So I'll call this light target. There you go. So instead of moving around the light, I'm trying to do A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just leave it here. Okay, I made a mistake moving that camera. However, it's animated, so if I were to drive this, it will take a minute to it. Yeah. So move out of this. Then create a target to the light, then the target will be that target. So if I take my light, move it, and angle it, you all know about the 3-point lighting thing. So put this one over here. Okay. Let's see what it looks like. No, let's get the other one ready first. Can even make this a little bit warm. Okay. Just a touch. Sorry. Control drag to create another light. And this one maybe over here. Go back to our. You can see that. So these are the okay, so we have that really dramatic thing going on. And a bit strong. See. So within just a few minutes, as you can see, we haven't done so much. You can see what we've achieved here. You can see what we've achieved here. And we still don't have the camera tags on both two extensions. Tags and on parameters. I'll have some depth of field for myself. These lights are too strong, so the intensity may think of a movie. Always use references. That's what I do. Always use a reference. Even if it's a short film movie. I don't have the image that I used to, frame this, but definitely I used a reference. So come to the camera. There you go. Enable that. So since Arnold is a path tracer, it really actually mimics the real world scenarios. So if your scene is not to scale, then you'll have a lot of tricks to do. For instance, right now I didn't do that to scale, so depth of field looks like crazy. So the last number here, the last f-stop is always 22, but I still would like to see a bit of this. So if you reach the maximum, then you can just key in whatever number you want. I'll go with 45 or 50, which can still give me a bit of details in here. I mean, you can see how pretty that is already looking. And what else do I need here? Aperture blades, maybe 5. You see those, the bokeh. This is what creates that. So the more you will see of this. That's not why. However, we look at it. Yeah, so as you can see, our scene is looking really nice. But there's a problem. We have too much noise in our scene. And the way to reduce that noise, part of it is to go to your light and increase the yeah, there you go. So if you go to 3, let's look what happens on the view compared to the noise that we had already. We are having a little bit of a cleaning compared to what we had initially, because we're using these samples to 3. However, it's now way slow. You can't even see how fast it's beginning. Okay, there you go. It's beginning to clean the image from the center. As you can see, compared to what we had initially. There's also another way of doing that. If you come to this, you see this. First of all, we go to ray depth. This ray depth determines how many times your light bounces into the scene. The higher you go, the less noise you will have in your scene. However, it takes up too much render time. So I think, okay, 3 though is a little bit on the long side. So let's just do 5. And if you look at this, you will see, usually this begins from 2. All of them, I suppose. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I disable this because I do not have any volume direct in my scene. I do not have any subsurface scattering, nor do I have transmission. But I have specular, all this reflection and stuff. And I also have diffuse, the color and all that. Then there's camera AA. This one overrides everything below it. What it does, it takes up the whole scene, and Arnold says, I want to look at your scene and I will clean up everything on my own single-handedly. So if you crank this up, it defies everything and it goes on to cleaning the image on its own. So right now we have a specularity of 2. Now there is another trick that some artists use to clean up this all noise. What they do is they go to AOVs, which is your passes, multipass. And this is the correct way I would advise you to render your CG images, so that when you go to compositing, if something goes wrong, maybe the image is way too bright or overexposed, then you can tone it down using just that particular feature, whether it's in emission, direct emission, or it's in specular where these reflections are. So you use that to identify where the noise is. And yeah, so we're not going to use that today. So let's just go ahead and increase our camera AA to 4, our diffuse depth to 3 like it was, and our specularity to 3 as well. And let's see exactly what we get. Now, when I'm at this point where I haven't decided to render my final image, I always like setting up my scene in using an override material. That way I don't have all these colors going on and bouncing light off of each other. It takes a bit of time. So what I do is come to your materials. Let's create Arnold surface standard surface shader. It has reflection, as you can see. So I'll just go here and under specularity, I'll take it down to 1. Then I'll go back to my settings and diagnostics, override features, scroll all the way down, you will find this override slot. So what you do, take this, go take your material, and now our material, the override material, is overriding everything. This is good because it speeds up your look dev so that you do this faster than using all those other colors and color information and reflections all over the scene. So the problem with using this, of taking all these settings all the way up, we've already done that with our lights. We took the samples all the way up to 3, and I think that's high, and I'm not gonna go back into that again. Yet, when you look at our scene, we still have a bit of noise left. So how can we do? I mean, all these renders, whenever you have a lot of lights in the scene, it takes a bit of time for them to calculate how each light, goes into the scene to light it up, bouncing off all these elements to create a nice image. Of course, our image already looks a bit clean, but we still have a bit of noise. Now, the fastest way, for me that is, the fastest way I always do this in getting really clean, nice renders is I like crafting there are times when I just do this, build my lights into the scene and do all that 3-point lighting. But there are times when time is not on my side and the client is really breathing on my neck and all that. So what I do is just get rid of this and go get an Arnold sky. Yeah, there we go. But then it's just flat. I don't see depth in this image. Of course, like we had initially, we still have a bit of noise in there. So let me just make it interesting by going here, and if you click this arrow, you'll see this texture, material and constant. Now we're going to focus on the texture itself. So I'll just click here and look for my HDRI. I like using this for production studies. Oh yes, I want to do that. And as soon as you feed that in, it's not updating. Well, I think it's still processing the image. I don't know. Let's fire it again. There you go. And our HDRI is now lighting up. As you can see, it's no longer as flat as it was, the white image that we had before. But now the problem is because we have an HDRI which is like shooting a lot of things into our scene because it's an HDRI. There could be windows in it or different light colors that are shooting there. Now the problem is that has messed up our image because the HDRI is, first of all, it's high res. Number two, it's just making the image not look as flat as it was before. But we have a lot of noise. So how to get rid of this noise and get a clean render without increasing? Okay, first of all, let's just increase the samples for this to 3 like we did with our lights. I think that's a mistake also. And let's look at that compared to what we just had like a second ago. From here, let's take a bit of time. Yeah, it's a bit much more cleaner, yeah, compared to what we had. So what we're going to do, without increasing any samples in here and without increasing our camera because what this does, how Arnold works, it keeps on multiplying and everything. It makes it by itself, and that's how we end up with a 4x4. You have your 16, and then on and on it goes on and on. And this to me is already way too high, yet we still have noise in here. If you have a powerful processor, please don't hold back, go all the way up, but I wouldn't advise to do that because you could be rendering an animation like what we are doing now. We're doing a still. So I just wanted to do a comparison because I'm not going to have this anymore. I can take this much higher, maybe 5. Light samples, maybe I do 4. Diffuse, that's okay. I'm just gonna go. So what we're gonna do is go here, that is, and I'll kill the IPR and just hit the render button. So let's give it a bit of time. I don't know if we can manage to do this in real time. It's a clear render and you still see noise here. So let's see how we can make this go down and even faster. So onto my light, I'll reduce the samples to 3 and go to my Arnold settings. I'll take this down to 4. The rest can stay as they are. Get rid of this. Go to Effect, Arnold Imager, and select Intel OIDN. That's all there is to do. And let's render the same image again. As you can see, there's a little bit of difference in render times. With denoiser 2 minutes 36 seconds, and without the denoiser 2 minutes 22 seconds. That is a difference of about 14 seconds. But look at the comparison. I mean, if you're like me who believes in quality, look at what we have at the bottom without the denoiser, and at the top with the denoiser. Look at that, beautiful. beautiful. Awesome. So without doing so much tweaking, a lot of stuff, this thing can save you a lot of time without going through all these things, making settings. Look at even at the top right corner. Look at our HDRI, how smooth that looks. The transition from the object to the HDRI. So this is it for me. If there's anything I missed, you can let me know in the comment section. But I just wanted to give you some few tips before we render out our final image, which I'll do composition for in DaVinci Resolve. When you're here, this is all okay. And if you go to color management, we'll render out in SS. Okay, we render out in SS. Reason being, this is academic color encoding system, something that has been used in most recent movies, and it works because it unifies everything together. Assuming you shoot in different cameras, Arri, Red, Sony, whatever, then you all have all those different colors coming in and raw formats coming in. So this will help you unify everything. The same applies to CG. Even if you had a CG character being incorporated in live action scene, this will always help you. This is a topic for another day because it's a really wide thing. So I'll just leave it at default SS and SS sRGB. Then we don't want to bake this view transform into out. No, we don't want to do that. We want it in this. So check this off. Okay. And the next thing, another very important thing, is, which I always do, except we are not going to do it for this tutorial because that's what's good for this tutorial, the AOVs. Always render your CG work in AOVs, in multipass. The reason being, should anything go wrong, this will save you a lot of time. If, say, the reflections were way too strong in your render out of the box, you can always make those adjustments in compositing. I use DaVinci Resolve. I don't know if you if you do your compositions inside of After Effects. I used After Effects for 4 years then. When I realized what DaVinci can do, DaVinci and Fusion can do, then I abandoned After Effects for DaVinci and Fusion, and I've never looked back. So DaVinci has a very beautiful way of doing this compositing, or Fusion for that matter, especially for VFX. Nuke has even a better way of doing it. I mean, there's pretty little difference between Nuke and Fusion, but I love Fusion because there's a free version. So why would you go spend millions of dollars when you can get this one? There's a free version and there's a professional version. I have a professional version. So always render out in multipass. That is a tutorial for another day. If that is something you'd like to see, please leave comments below, then I'll create a tutorial for that going forward. It's beautiful, something like that. Today we're just going to render a single image. However, we'll still render it in EXR format. This is the best for multipass because in 32-bit float. This is important because this image stores a lot of information. And then, of course, if you render it out in SS, which is like a flat profile from your camera, look at it as like S-Log3 probably out of your camera, which is very flat. Then you have a lot of information to work with, color grading. You can throw in everything at this image and it will not break. Unlike 8-bit image. Anyway, that is a tutorial for another day. Now let me just render this, and then we jump into DaVinci and see what our image really looks like. Hi guys, so once again here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I could as well have done this inside of Fusion, but I just chose to use DaVinci because I still color grade. So here's our still shot. I usually, like I said before, color grade and color correct everything. I do compositing inside of Fusion and DaVinci, regardless of whether it's an image or a still shot. I have reasons why. Initially, I used After Effects, but when I realized what DaVinci can do, I abandoned After Effects for DaVinci, and I've never looked back. So here's our footage, and we can create a new timeline using the same. And the aspect ratio was a little bit. I just used my own stuff when I was inside of Cinema 4D. So I'll fill this up, and of course I want to see the about slow it down a little. So there we go, but it looks a little bit wild. It's pretty dark and we can't see so much detail. Of course, this was rendered in the way I did my settings in Cinema 4D. It was rendered like a flat profile, and we also used edges, so basically that gives us a lot of information. And we rendered in we used OpenEXR, which stores a lot of information and data that you can use while color grading. It's something similar to what you get out of your red camera, like an S-Log3 or something, but basically flat, so that you have a lot of information to work with when you're editing. So DaVinci doesn't even know how to treat this thing. So what you need to do is, with this selected, let's go to Fusion. And there's one important thing we're going to do here. Yeah, control space. And let's get something called gamut. Add it. When video is selected, if you apply any effect, it will automatically come into the channel. The way is just getting your effect into this space and hold shift as you drag it into this line, and it will still hold. So let's look at our image through view 1 and to the left, and after the application of the gamut, let's look at that on viewer 2. There you go. So source space will do nothing with that completely, but when you come to outspace, just scroll down and find sRGB and voila, our image now displays correctly the way it's supposed to, even if you were to use the media out. And this works throughout this whole thing. If you go back to your timeline to edit, you see now our image displays correctly. So from here on going forward, please just go all out and do everything that you can to make your image pop and look beautiful. Yeah, so really what you do with this is up to you. I'll do another tutorial on this. Is actually not the right way to render out your images from 3D. Usually I render out multi-passes, and there's a lot of advantage in doing that, because say for instance, if this image was overblown, like there was too much light onto it, then I'll be able to only control the diffuse channel, or even the post channel, that is bloom and glare. So this, I would not advise you to render out your 3D images or your 3D content like this, like one single image. And EXR comes into does a lot when you render out in multipass, because it stores a lot of information. You just have one file which has everything. I'm pretty sure if a lot of you guys want to see how that happens, please put a comment in the comment section, and I'll do that tutorial next after this. But this is not the right way to render. You can't render a single image, because when you have a problem, then it means you have to go back and render. Say for instance, if your render took like almost 1 hour to do one shot, one frame, then you can imagine if it's an animation, how much problems you would have. The time, sometimes this job involves it works with timelines, so most of the time it works with timelines, so you can imagine now how much time you're going to be wasting. So if you want to see that, please leave a comment, and I'll do exactly that. Finally, if you love this tutorial, please like, subscribe, and click the notification button, because we're just beginning. There's a lot in store for you guys to see, and there's a lot coming your way. So please just hit the subscribe button, hit like, and the notification button, so you don't miss anything when I post. Also, if there's any particular tutorial that you'd like me to do, please leave a comment, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Till next time, see you. Take care.